How's it going, everyone? Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today we're going to be taking a look at part 1 of the Netflix horror trilogy Fear Street. Fear Street Part 1, 1994 is a horror slasher film directed by Lee Yanyak and stars Kiana Madeira, Benjamin Flores Jr., Olivia Scott Welch, and Julia Raywald. Fear Street is based on the series of books of the same name by prolific horror author R.L. Stine. Though most famous for his long-running series of children's horror books, Goosebumps, he has written many other stories over the years, including a series of young adult horror called Fear Street, which so far has over 50 books in its main series, as well as numerous spin-offs. The Fear Street novels tell a wide range of stories, some featuring supernatural elements, while others are more like murder mysteries, all taking place in the fictional setting of Shadyside, Ohio, a town plagued by an inordinately high amount of strange crimes and near constant violence, giving it the title of Murder Capital of America. It's a place where killing is so common it's just become an everyday occurrence for most of its residents. This trilogy of film adaptations aren't direct adaptations of any particular story of Stine's, but rather an all-new tale using the setting and ideas as a framing device, much like the novels themselves, which only occasionally follow a linear narrative. Fear Street Part 1 does a decent job of establishing the town as a place of chaos and mayhem by opening with a well-crafted slasher sequence in a mall, strongly reminiscent of the Scream franchise. During the opening credits, the film also sets up the town's rivalry with the seemingly picturesque neighboring community of Sunnyvale, which in contrast to the murder capital of the country hasn't had an instance of violent crime in decades, a fact the residents of Sunnyvale frequently use against their less fortunate neighbors. While most of the people of Shadyside go about their lives with little concern for the reason why their town is the way it is, not everyone is oblivious to this. One such character is Josh, played by Benjamin Flores Jr., who is obsessed with his town's dark past and has been investigating the numerous serial killer cases over the years in a manner very similar to the character of Ben Hanscom in Stephen King's It. Josh is a nerdy loner who uses the Konami code as a mantra and spends most of his time isolated with the exception of a mysterious friend he chats with on Instant Messenger and his sister Dina. Dina, played by Kiana Madeira, is in many ways the complete opposite of her brother and is mostly wrapped up in the typical high school drama one would expect from this type of film. Currently obsessing with a recent breakup with her girlfriend Sam, played by Olivia Scott Welch, who has since moved to Sunnyvale, furthering the divide between them. The other major characters are Dina's friends, cheerleader Kate, played by Julia Raywald, and the class clown Simon, played by Fred Hetchinger. During a vigil held for the latest victims of the mall massacre, Dina and Sam meet again, where Dina discovers that Sam is now dating one of the football players at Sunnyvale, and another argument breaks out between them. Later, a brawl between the students from Shadyside and Sunnyvale breaks out, which then culminates with some of the Sunnyvale students, including Sam's boyfriend, who has also reluctantly dragged Sam along, deciding to chase after the Shadyside school bus to continue harassing them. During the altercation, Dina and others throw a bucket at the car, which causes the driver to lose control and crash into a nearby forest, which happens to house the remains of an ancient witch, Sarah Fear, who was killed in 1666 and is the supposed cause of all the horrible happenings that occur in the town. The spirit of the witch attaches itself to Sam, who accidentally disturbed her remains when stumbling out of the crashed vehicle, and it isn't long before the spirits of some of the worst killers in the town's history begin stalking the main characters. Eventually, Sam and Dina get back together, and with the help of Dina's friends and brother, they desperately attempt to figure out a way to save Sam from the witch's curse. Fear Street Part 1 goes through a number of interesting twists and turns that keep it interesting and fresh throughout. The characters are always in a constant state of danger, and the movie gives the impression that no one is safe as the witch attempts to get her vengeance. While based on R.L. Stine's books, it certainly doesn't shy away from making numerous homages to other greats of the genre, and it seems as if each chapter will be taking place in a different decade, and as such the general setting and overall feel of each film will differ as well. As the title suggests, Part 1 is set in 1994 and draws a lot of inspiration from Wes Craven's 1996 slasher film Scream, a movie that itself is often cited as the film that reinvigorated the genre, as well as several others including Halloween, another genre-defining film. Additionally, the film also has elements of more recent films such as It Follows, Cabin in the Woods, and of course Stranger Things, which actually has a couple of interesting connections that may or may not be intentional. While ultimately ending up on Netflix as a 3-week event, it was initially intended to be released in cinemas in the summer of 2020, with each film being released 1 month apart. Though created by Chernin Entertainment, the films were to be distributed by 20th Century Fox, but due to the pandemic and the Disney-Fox buyout, the deal fell through, and Chernin later went to Netflix, where it eventually ended up, which seems to have worked out quite well for it. As mentioned previously, there's plenty of appeal to be found in this series of films, especially for fans of Stranger Things. Not only does this film feature a cameo by Maya Hawke, who played Robin in Stranger Things Season 3, Fear Street Part 2, 1978, features Sadie Sink in a lead role, who, of course, is most famous for her role as Max in Seasons 2 and 3 of the popular Netflix series. Although that series is well known for its 80s retro vibe, Fear Street has similar appeal, being set first in the mid-1990s and then next in the late 70s. Personally, I enjoyed Fear Street Part 1, 1994 quite a bit and found it to be a pretty effective and stylish start to the trilogy, and would recommend it to fans of horror, especially the slasher genre. I found the mythology that ties the numerous killings together, going all the way back to the 17th century, to be a particularly cool element of the story, and am genuinely interested to see how it all ties together in the end. Towards the end of Part 1, the characters actually managed to contact a survivor of a previous massacre, the one which will be depicted in Part 2, 1978, which further illustrates how closely the trilogy of films seem to be connected. So I'm certainly looking forward to Part 2, as well as Part 3, 1666, which seems to be the one that'll tie it all together. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more horror-related content in the future. Also, if you've seen Fear Street Part 1, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below, and as always, have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.